Patrician of Team Sorcerers here, and welcome back to What If Wednesday. And this one is another suggestion by Joseph Barfield. What if Razer and Behemoth weren't seeded 3rd and 6th for Series 4 and had their seeding based on their Series 2 and 3 performance? I reckon Behemoth would have been seeded 10th based on reaching the semi-final in Series 2 and Heat Final in Series 3, and Razer would be seeded 25 due to only making it to round 2 in Series 2 and 3, but would be seeded based on popularity. I think Razer would be seeded a bit higher than that, and Behemoth maybe a bit lower. I'm not sure how the seeds were really decided for the 4th Wars, but here's how the lineup would be for the top 15 at least. I mean, obviously Chaos 2 and Hypnodisc would still be 1st and 2nd respectively. Then it would be 3 Panic Attack, 4 Firestorm 2, 5 Steg 2, 6 Gemini, 7 101, 8 Spawn of Scutter, 9 Wild Thing, 10 Evil Weevil, 11 Gravedigger, 12 Bigger Brother, and I reckon Behemoth would be seeded 13th here, based on reaching the semi-finals in Series 2 and the Heat Final of Series 3. Still worthy of being higher than Wheelie Big Cheese. Speaking of, Wheelie Big Cheese would be seeded 14th, and Razer would be seeded 15th, and here's why. Because here's the thing, like, Kilohertz was still seeded despite never winning a fight by that point. Well, unless it did in BattleBots, I don't know. But yeah, Kilohertz made it to round 2 in Series 2 and lost in round 1 in the 3rd Wars, and yet was still seeded among the top 16. So, based on this logic, Razer would be 15th here, whereas the other seeds onwards would remain the same. And I guess, even though, I guess there'd still be a similar arrangement where we'd have Gemini's Heat in the first half of the Heats, because apparently the producers or whoever wanted that to get a potential fight between Gemini and Chaos 2, so I guess we'd still have it as Heat F, and the 11th seed, which would be Gravedigger, would be in Heat N, so Gemini's Heat would still be Heat F, based on this. Now, I'm not sure why Suicidal Tendencies and Centurion swapped over. Because Suicidal Tendencies, being the 32nd seed, was in Heat H for some reason, and Centurion Heat I, despite being 31st. So, I don't know. I guess they can still stay in those respective heats. Otherwise, everyone stays in the same battles, and yeah, we'll just base it from there. And sorry if you can hear some building work in the background. Nothing I can do about that. Plus, I need the window open because it's a bit hot and muggy. So anyway, so here's how it would go. Obviously, Heat A would play out the exact same way. Then Heat B is Panic Attack's heat, and I kind of already went over this exact scenario before in an earlier episode. So yeah, Panic Attack and Smidsy would win their fight, Pussycat and Millian Bug would win theirs, then Panic Attack would beat Millian Bug, Pussycat would beat Smidsy, although it would be quite a close fight, but I feel like Pussycat would win it on a judge's decision based on damage. Then in the heat final, Panic Attack and Pussycat face off, and it plays out near enough the same way as their Series 5 fight, because there's not much that Panic Attack can do against Pussycat, so Pussycat wins that one. In Heat C, that would be Steg 2's heat, so Steg 2 and Crusader 2 go through there, whereas Ming 2 and Bolt from the Blue beat Deator. So then Steg 2 would fight Bolt from the Blue, and I'm not quite sure how this would go. I feel like it would go a similar way to the fight with Firestorm, because Steg 2 would just would keep ramming the Bolt from the Blue more than anything, or turn around and try and flip it over. So yeah, that would play out in a similar way, just based on aggression, and Steg 2 would go through, leaving the Bolt from the Blue team not very happy. So then Ming 2 and Crusader 2. This is a tough one to call. I mean, it would be a slippery battle. I'm not sure Crusader 2 would be able to get in underneath Ming. Now I know Ming 2 does break down here, but I'm not sure what the cause was, whether it just happens out of the blue, or whether the morgue did something to it in the real timeline. Yeah, it's a really tough one. It depends whether or not Ming 2 would still break down. If it does, Crusader 2 would go through to the heat final and face Steg 2. And Crusader 2 would start the stronger, but Steg 2 would be able to flip it over, and I don't think Crusader 2's flipping on works too well while inverted. So Steg 2 would probably win that, whereas if Ming 2 won, then I'm not sure it would beat Steg 2. I mean, one flip and Ming can't really do much, so either way I think Steg 2 would still go through. So Heat D, it's now 101's heat, so 101 and Dominator 2 beat Henry 2, Mortis and Iron Ore 2 win their fight. So then in round 2, I think 101 would beat Iron Ore, because I don't know, it still seems to be having some sort of issues with their drive. So 101's more likely to win this one. And then we have a clash of the axes between Mortis and Dominator 2. Of course, this would be a bit awkward because they can't really damage each other. It would be cool to see though, but I feel like Mortis would have an advantage here, because it also has its lifting arm as well. So I feel like it would ram Dominator 2 a lot and would flip it over with the arm. and it would go to the judges, and Mortis would actually go through. So that's one change already to the timeline. Dominator 2 not making it to the semi-finals, but oh wait, there is also Panic Attack being eliminated. Yeah, and then it's a clash of the seeds again, or 101 against Mortis. Now, I know obviously Mortis did have some mechanical issues, but I don't think it would be too much of an issue, considering there wouldn't be much 101 could do to Mortis. Although it would be a cool shoving match, but Mortis would be able to use its front to get in underneath 101 quite easily, and even hit it at least once with the axe, and try and use the lifting arm, and because of this, Mortis would win and go through to the semi-finals for a second time ever. So Heat E, that would be Wild Thing's Heat, and Shadow of Napalm's. So Wild Thing and Steel Avenger would win their fight, Shadow of Napalm and Major Tom would win theirs. And I think Wild Thing would beat Major Tom on a judge's decision, and Steel Avenger would just beat Napalm in the same way that Dominator 2 beat it in the real timeline. Then the Heat final plays out the same way, Wild Thing goes through. So then we move on to Heat F, which is still Gemini's Heat, but this time Exterminator is in this one as well. So yeah, Gemini and Tornado win their fight. Exterminator and Judge Shred 2 win theirs. Then in round 2, Gemini would beat Judge Shred 2, and Tornado would exterminate Exterminator. So yeah, that's another change. Exterminator doesn't make it to the semi-finals. And then the Heat final plays out the same way, with Tornado winning. So then Heat G, we come to Behemoth's Heat. So yeah, Behemoth and Arnold Terminator win their fight. Dreadnought XP1 and Dark Destroyer 2 also win theirs. Round 2, Behemoth flips over Dark Destroyer 2 quite easily, and I think Arnold A. Terminator would beat Dreadnought, because obviously in the real timeline you can see right away that Dreadnought wasn't running freely, only one wheel seemed to be working. So the same thing would happen here, and Arnold would go through, and then in the Heat final, Behemoth would beat Arnie on a judge's decision. So now Heat H, Razer is up. So Razer and Robo Chicken win their fight. Suicidal Tendencies and Killertron win their fight. Round 2, Razer easily beats Killertron, and Suicidal Tendencies beats Robo Chicken. So then in the Heat final we get the fight that we never got to see in the 5th Wars, even though this is an older model of Suicidal Tendencies we're talking about here. Now, I know Razer does break down at this point, but I feel like that was only because of Pussycat damaging it, but this doesn't happen here, so yeah, unfortunately Suicidal Tendencies is no match for Razer here, and Razer goes through to the semi-finals for the first time. Hello B, do you want to be in the video? Come on. Come on up. Or not. You can just look at his pointy tail. So then, heat I, the heat of kilohertz and Centurion, nothing changes. So heat J is Really Big Cheese's heat. There he is. Oh, he's purring. Don't know if you guys can hear. Here to give your thoughts. So yeah, Really Big Cheese and Wheelosaurus win their fight. Stinger and Bulldog Breed win theirs. Then in round 2, Really Big Cheese easily defeats Bulldog Breed because it can't self-right based on the design. And then we have a clash of the Axelbots, which we actually did see in the original Robot Wars magazine as a fantasy fight. Yeah, sadly, Wheelosaurus wouldn't be as lucky here, considering it's having some issues, and Stinger wins quite easily. So then again, the seeds meet in the heat final. Now, I think the flipper did work at least once in the real timeline. So yeah, I know Really Big Cheese did have some problems like before this fight, but yeah, it does go off once, and that seems to be it, both in the real timeline and this timeline, and the Stinger would take advantage of this, so it's quite difficult to flip anyway, so I think Stinger would still go through to the semi-finals. So then we come to heat K, so this would be Bigger Brother's heat, so Bigger Brother and Hammer and Tong win their fight. Something and the Little Fly win their fight, but it's hard to say who would face whom, since obviously a seed doesn't go through. Now I know Bigger Brother ends up having a gas leak at this point in round 2. Yeah, it would beat something still, and probably Little Fly all the same. It might even use its wedge shape to flip Little Fly over, or at least push it around. Whereas Hammer and Tong would probably beat something as well, and Little Fly. I think either way, Bigger Brother and Hammer and Tong would still meet in the heat final, and the gas leak would be repaired, and Bigger Brother would go through and make it to a second semi-final. So heat L, Evil Weevil's heat. So obviously we know what happens with Evil Weevil. Mousetrap and Tiberius go through, whereas Plunderbird 4 and Vercingetorix win their fight. But again, it's hard to say who'd fight whom, since only one seed is going through. But I'm not sure Plunderbird 4 would get further, because one track stops working, so I think Tiberius or Mousetrap would still beat it based on that. As for Vercingetorix, I think it would probably beat Tiberius too, just simply by flipping it over. Same with Mousetrap. I'm not sure. I don't know how easily it would flip Mousetrap over. I guess it probably would. So, I think because of this, Vercingetorix would actually make it to the semi-finals for the first time. He wanted a cuddle in a video.
Oh, that's cute.
So then we move on to Heat M, which is Spawn of Scotter's heat. So Spawn of Scotter and Raging Nightmare would win their fight. Berserk 2 and the Creature would win theirs. Spawn of Scotter would then beat the Creature, and Nightmare would beat Berserk 2. Then the Heat final plays out the same way with Spawn of Scotter winning. So Heat N, let's see, we need whoever the 11th seed was, and that was Gravedigger. So yeah, Thermidor 2 and Chronic the Wedgehog win that fight. Chromalot and Reactor win the other fight. And I think Thermidor 2 would face Chromalot, as that's quite easy to figure out because it would have faced the other seed basically, which means that a Chronic 2 would face Reactor. But I guess it depends who flips who first. But Reactor did seem a bit slow and sluggish, and I'm not sure it would be able to flip Chronic 2 quite easily, so I think, sorry, not Chronic 2, just Chronic, so Chronic would win that fight, and Chromalot, of course, is no match for Thermidor 2, at least not this version, so Thermidor 2 would win that, and then Heat final plays out the same way with Thermidor 2 winning that. So Heat O, Firestorm is up. So Firestorm and Scar, or should I say the Morgue, win that fight. And Agrabah 2 and Sawpoint would win their respective fight. Firestorm 2 would beat Sawpoint, and the Morgue would more than likely beat Agrabah 2. Then Heat final plays out the same way. And then the last heat, Heat P, Hypnodisc's heat, that plays out the same way as well. So, so the semi-finals, I feel like we'd have to make this, try and have to make it match the timeline as much as possible. So, Chaos 2 and Steg 2. Actually, I don't think Chaos 2 and Steg 2 would get pitted against each other, since they'd be the highest ranking seeds here and would be kept separate. So if we're doing it where a certain heat winner faces another certain heat winner, then that would mean we'd have to put Chaos 2 up against Mortis, Razer against Tornado, Pussycat against Behemoth, and Steg 2 against, who did I say won heat? It was Wild Thing, wasn't it? So, yeah, we'll basically go with that. So, I think Chaos 2 would be able to beat Mortis by flipping it all over the place. Whether or not Mortis would still be having technical problems, I don't know. Probably not by this point. And then Razer would beat Tornado. And then Pussycat would beat Behemoth. There's not much Behemoth can do, and again, it's still a slow robot. And as for Steg 2 and Wild Thing, that's a tough one. I think Wild Thing would be able to push Steg 2 around quite easily. Maybe Steg 2 would get a couple of flips in, but Wild Thing would be able to get back up. It would be a bit of a slugfest and a very slippery one as well. It would be pretty close. But I think because of Steg 2 doing a lot of flipping, I think Steg 2 would win the fight and go through. So then this would mean we'd have Chaos 2 against Razer and Pussycat against Steg 2. Yeah, this would be interesting. Now, I know at some point in 2000, which I mentioned before, there was this live event where Chaos 2 did beat Razer, but I don't know if it was because Razer broke down or not. Not sure of the details there. But yeah, I would think this wouldn't happen here. I don't know if it would be lazy writing or not, but you know, statistically otherwise, Razer usually beats Chaos 2 whenever they meet. So I think Razer would defeat Chaos 2 here and eliminate the reigning champion. And as for Steg 2 and Pussycat, this is a tough one to call. Steg 2 would be able to flip Pussycat, but it's kind of ineffective. Pussycat would just do some damage with the saw, and would be a bit more excuse me, a bit more controlled here. So I don't know. I think Pussycat would more than likely win this, based on that. So semi-final 2. Hypnodisc would still fight Splinter. Like, that's easy enough to figure out. And Stinger would face. Stinger would fight Bigger Brother. A Firestorm 2 would fight. Not that. Vercingetorix. Hypnodisc would fight Splinter, like I said, and Spawn of Scudder would fight Thermidor 2. A rematch. But yeah, Bigger Brother would struggle against Stinger, I think, because the flipper's just too thin. So yeah, Stinger would win on a judge's decision. And Firestorm 2 would beat Vercingetorix, I think. I don't know if the axe would do much damage, but I feel like Firestorm 2 would still be able to beat Vercingetorix. And obviously we know what happens with Hypnodisc and Splinter. And then Spawn of Scudder against Thermidor 2, a rematch from the Third Wars. But I don't think Thermidor 2 would fare any better here. It would struggle to flip Spawn of Scudder over. And Spawn of Scudder would just push Thermidor 2 around too much, and maybe even use the spike to flip Thermidor over. Depends on the angle, but either way, Spawn of Scudder is more likely to win this one. So in round 2, we have Firestorm against Stinger. I feel like Firestorm 2 would be more controlled and aggressive here. So it would go kind of a similar way to the Chaos 2 fight. So yeah, Firestorm for me. And Hypnodisc would fight Spawn of Scudder, and yeah, Spawn of Scudder would just get trashed, I think. So yeah, Hypnodisc goes through to the grand final, and what a grand final lineup we have here. Hypnodisc, Firestorm, Razer, and Pussycat. So the Hypnodisc would still face Pussycat, and Razer would still face Firestorm 2. So yeah, we know what happens between Pussycat and Hypnodisc. Yeah, Pussycat wins that. Razer beats Firestorm. And because Hypnodisc is too badly damaged to do the playoff, Firestorm finishes third again, but by default. So then we still have Pussycat and Razer fighting each other, but in the grand final. And yeah, unfortunately this does play out the same way as their original timeline fight, which sort of makes things worse in a way. Yeah, I think this would make Ian Lewis more annoyed, considering like this was the grand final stage. So as a result, Pussycat would win the 4th series of Robot Wars, much to my dismay, considering it knocked out both Hypnodisc and Razer. So I guess, so there would in fact be a different seed lineup for the 5th Wars, and Common Getterix would actually take part, because I'm assuming it in the real timeline it didn't qualify for the 5th Wars, but in this case it would have done, which does change a few things, which I still need to work out. Give me a minute. In this timeline, the seeds for the 5th Wars would be as follows: 1 Pussycat, 2 Razer, 3 Firestorm, 4 Hypnodisc. Even though Hypnodisc was seeded higher than Stinger, despite the situation of the playoff, I feel like it would just make more sense having Firestorm seeded higher than Hypnodisc still, because it would be a bit confusing if I put Hypnodisc as 3rd and Firestorm as 4th. And 5 Chaos 2, 6 Stinger, 7 Free Stegs to Heaven, 8 Wild Thing, 9 Tornado, 10 Spawn again, 11 Behemoth, 12 Bigger Brother, 13 Common Getterix, but we'll get to that fight in a minute. 14 Panic Attack, 15 Really Big Cheese, 16 Thermidor 2. Basically, Thermidor 2, Splinter, Gemini, Megamorg, Mousetrap, Suicidal Tendencies, Atomic, and 101 still have their same seeds as in the real timeline, but Steel Avenger, I think, would be seeded 24th here instead of Smithy, which is fine because they're in the same heat, so nothing would change anything. And then Dominator 2 wouldn't be seeded here, but it and Derek would take the place of Bigger Brother and Tip Top in Heat K, and be in the same heat as Splinter and Wild Thing. And then Common Getorix would fight Exterminator instead of Immortalis. Just because, well, no offence, but Common Getorix is just better. So in Heat A, Pussycat and the Executioner are there instead of Chaos 2 and Storm Force. But otherwise, the battles stay the same. So Pussycat beats the Executioner, Smidsy beats Obsidian, 864. Excuse me. 8645T beats T-Bone, and Steel Avenger beats Tartan Terror. So yeah, oh god, I feel like I'm going to sneeze again. So Pussycat and Smidsy would fight each other again, and Pussycat would win. And Steel Avenger, I think, would beat 8645T. And then, of course, the two seeds would meet in the Heat final. But Pussycat is the more damaging and goes through to the semi-finals. So Heat B, you've got Firestorm and Decapitator here instead of Hypnodisc and Black Widow. So yeah, Firestorm beats Decapitator. Bulldog Breed 3 beats Juggernaut 2. Lamsey beats Walwart. Atomic beats Can Opener. Now, here's where things get interesting. So yeah, Firestorm would face Atomic for some reason, and Bulldog Breed would face Lamsey. Now, we know what happens with Bulldog Breed and Lamsey, but now I've gone over a scenario where Atomic would beat Firestorm, and I feel like the same thing would happen here. I mean, Firestorm is good, but I'm not too sure it would beat Atomic that easily, and Atomic would just flip Firestorm more easily and even get it out the arena, which would be a major shock. So that happens, then Atomic and Bulldog Breed meet in the Heat final, and because of the shapes of the respective flippers, Atomic would beat Bulldog Breed. So then Heat C, the Heat of Chaos 2 and Mousetrap. So yeah, Chaos 2 would beat Storm Force, S3 would beat Plunderbird 5, Mousetrap would beat Mutant. Well, I say that, but Mutant, not Mutant, Shredder, because Shredder accidentally reversed into the pit, and General Carnage 2 would beat Gazunderbot. Yeah. Despite Gazunderbot having a flipper, I think Chaos 2 should be able to beat General Carnage with not too many problems, I would think. Whereas, well, the fight between Mousetrap and S3 plays out the same way, which leaves Chaos 2 to face S3 in the Heat final. It would be a bit of a struggle. I mean, I think Chaos 2 would still be able to flip S3 all over the place. The disc might hit Chaos 2 a couple of times, but it should still survive the blow. But I feel like Chaos 2 would still get at a good enough angle to even flip S3 out the arena. So Chaos 2 would just about win. So yeah, that's already two major changes. Firestorm 3 and S3 not making the semi-finals. So Heat D, we've got 3 Stakes to Heaven and Gemini. So yeah, 3 Stakes would beat 11, Suchromalot would beat Rohog, Reactor 2 would beat Bot Out of Hell, and yeah, Gemini would beat Rough Dougal. I did actually go over this before, but Suchromalot would beat 3 Stakes here by flipping it on its side and just leaving it there, which makes this the best Suchromalot ever did. Reactor then of course beats Gemini, and then the two of them meet in the Heat final, but Reactor 2 would flip Suchromalot over, and it can't get back up. Reactor 2 goes through to the semi-finals. So Heat E, it's Tornado and Thermidor's heat. So yeah, Tornado would beat Gravedigger, the Alien would beat Velociraptor, Napalm would beat Rohog, and Prize Fighter Mach 2 would beat Thermidor. So this would mean that Tornado would fight Napalm. Oh boy. But I think, yeah, this would definitely be a struggle for Napalm. I think Napalm would break down right away, based on what happened in the real timeline, because one hit from Wild Thing just completely knocked it out. So this, of course, would happen long before Tornado breaks down at this point. So yeah, one slam from Tornado knocks Napalm out, then Tornado would, of course, go for the pit and then just shove Napalm down there. So Tornado goes through. Then Prize Fighter beats the Alien, and yeah, Tornado would beat Prize Fighter in the Heat final. So Heat F, the Heat of Behemoth and Panic Attack. So Behemoth would beat Supernova, King B Powerworks beat Chronic 2, Corkscrew would beat 13 Black, and Panic Attack would beat Barbarous 2. So then Behemoth would face King B Powerworks, so a clash of Series 2 semi-finalists. But I don't think King B would be able to do much to Napalm. I mean, yeah, it might push it around a little bit, but but it's just too easy for Behemoth to flip over a couple of times, even get it in a lock with both the scoop and the axe. So Behemoth definitely wins that one. And as for Panic Attack and Corkscrew, well, Corkscrew's weapon isn't working by this point, so it's an easy win for Panic Attack. The seeds then meet in a heat final. Now it does depend on whether or not the scoop can get in underneath Panic Attack's skirts, but what would more than likely happen is Behemoth would charge head on and just flip Panic Attack over. Just pin it, shove it around, even get it to the side. So yeah, I don't really see Panic Attack winning this one. Behemoth goes through to the semi-finals for a third time. So then Heat G. We've got Bigger Brother and Common Getterix in this one. So yeah, Behemoth would beat Tip Top, Deer Talk beats Dome, Evolution beats Sabertooth, and as for Common Getterix and Exterminator, that's a tough one. I mean, they're quite evenly matched. I mean, I guess Exterminator's axe would do more damage. So yeah, that would be a tough one. Common Getterix does have an advantage though with its flipper, which would get Exterminator over, although Exterminator could get back up. I'm not sure how much damage Common Getterix's axe would do, but I feel like Exterminator would be very damaging. So yeah, it's a tough one. It could go either way. Mind you, I don't think the damage would be enough to stop Common Getterix that much. So I think because it would keep flipping Exterminator over, Common Getterix would more likely win this one. So then we have Bigger Brother against Deer Tor, and yeah, Deer Tor stands no chance. I mean, Bigger Brother just flips it over immediately and goes through to the heat final. Common Getterix would then beat Evolution. And then we'd have a rematch between Common Getterix and Bigger Brother. Now, I know they did fight each other before, because they fought in the Tag Team Terror, and they did have a vengeance battle. But that vengeance battle happened after Series 5. It looked like it was filmed after Series 5. So it probably wouldn't happen, and that fight would happen here, and would play out a similar way, and Bigger Brother just wins the heat. So then Heat H, Spawn against Heat. And Really Big Cheese is here as well, so they're both in the same heat, which is handy. So yeah, Spawn again would beat Hydra, Axel would beat Granny's Revenge, Crustacean would beat Robo Chicken Evo, and Really Big Cheese would beat Wolverine. Round 2, Spawn again would beat Axel with not too many problems, and then Crustacean and Really Big Cheese fight each other one round early, and yeah, that basically plays out the same way. So we have a clash of the flippers in the heat final. I'm not sure who'd win this one. It's a tough call. Then again, I guess Spawn again more likely would. Or would it? Because I know it ends up having those issues after flipping Dietor over. I mean, it would charge at Really Big Cheese and flip it over, even though it does nothing. Would come at Really Big Cheese again, try and flip it over again, but then at this point, this is when the flipper gets stuck open, and Really Big Cheese takes advantage of this and flips Spawn again over, and Spawn again is just left for dead. So Really Big Cheese finally makes it through to the series semi-finals. So then we have Wild Things heat and Splinter's heat. So yeah, Splinter beats Viper 01, Dominator 2 beats Derek, Tetanus beats Onslaught, and Wild Thing beats Trouble and Strife. So then Dominator 2 faces Splinter. It's quite a close fight, but there's not really much Splinter can do against Dominator 2. I've had to push it around a bit, but Dominator 2 does get stuck in with the axe, and even comes in from the side and just keeps getting axe blow after axe blow in. So yeah, it's pretty close, but it could go to the judges, and Dominator 2 just about gets it on damage. And then in the other fight, Wild Thing would beat Tetanus with not too many problems. So then Wild Thing and Dominator 2 would meet in the heat final, and this would be a rematch. Actually, I don't even know if their All-Stars fight would happen, because I don't think, because Dominator 2 didn't make it to the semi-finals of Series 4 in this timeline, I don't think it would qualify for the All-Stars, so Wild Thing would have had to fight someone else. Not sure who, though. But, yeah, this is basically their first time meeting, and, yeah, this is a tough one to call. There's, because I know when they fought before, Dominator 2 didn't have its wheel guards, and Wild Thing won based on damage to the wheels, but now that it has the wheel guards, it's a bit of a struggle. I mean, Wild Thing would put up a great fight pushing Dominator 2 around, but Dominator 2 has more of a chance of doing damage. I mean, otherwise it would play out the same way as their real All-Stars fight. So it would be a case of aggression. But even though Dominator 2 missed with the axe a couple of times, it is able to be aggressive and shove Wild Thing around, almost tipping it over. So, yeah, my best guess as to who would win, I'd have to say Dominator 2, just because Wild Thing can't damage it and would get shoved around too easily and almost tipped over. So then Heat J, it's Stinger's Heat and Megamorph's Heat. So yeah, Cat 3 would beat Mini Morg. Um, Tiberius 2 would beat Monad. Major Tom would beat Kryptonite, and Stinger would beat Hippopotamus. So then round 2, Cat 3 would beat Major Tom, and then Stinger would fight Tiberius 2, but Tiberius might struggle because there's nothing really to grab. As now I think I did talk about a scenario where Stinger could beat Razer. There'd hardly be anything to grab, and if Razer would struggle, what chance does Tiberius have? So Stinger would win on a judge's decision, and then it would face Cat 3 in the heat final. But there's not much Cat 3 can do, really. So again, Stinger straight up goes through. Then Heat K, Hypnodisc's heat. So yeah, Hypnodisc beats Black Widow. Widow's Revenge beats something. Destructor Bubble beats Accident, and Suicidal Tendencies beats Rick. But then, of course, Rick goes through based on Suicidal Tendencies' mechanical failure. So yeah, Hypnodisc beats Widow's Revenge, Rick beats Destructor Bubble, and Rick would put up a decent fight against Hypnodisc, but Hypnodisc would just do the more damage and then go through to the semi-finals. Then the last heat, Razor's heat. So yeah, Razor beats Big Nipper, Terahertz beats Ming 3, Claude Hopper beats Twister, and Fluffy beats 101. Razor would then beat Claude Hopper, Fluffy beats Terahertz, which would mean that Fluffy would fight Razor in the heat final. But Razor, I think, could dodge the spinning weapon of Fluffy quite easily and just get a crush from the side or the back. Yeah, just get at Fluffy really quickly and just not give it a chance to do any damage, which would more than likely result in Fluffy stopping working. Then Razor goes through to the semi-finals. So then in the semi-finals, let's see, in the first one we've got Chaos 2, Dominator 2, Pussycat, Tornado, Hypnodisc, Bigger Brother. Yeah, so Chaos 2 would fight Dominator 2 and beat it in the same way it beats Steel Avenger, just send it out the arena. And Tornado would beat Pussycat very easily, so it would be a shock already that the champion has been beaten here. And then well, we know what happened when Bigger Brother fought Hypnodisc. That basically plays out the same way, which means the loser's melee has Dominator 2, Pussycat and Hypnodisc. So a bit of a rematch there between Pussycat and Hypnodisc. I mean, Dominator 2 wouldn't be able to beat either of them, but this time Hypnodisc, improved from the Fourth Wars, would be more wary of the blade, and it would be able to stay out of harm's way this time, and knock off one of Pussycat's wheels, and then And once it's done that, it would go straight for Dominator 2, and then have that go the same way as their real Series 5 fight, just slamming into the back of it, leaving a gash at the back, and some damage on the side, leaving Dominator 2 immobile on one side, and then Hypnodisc would return its attention to Pussycat and do some more damage to it. With both Pussycat and Dominator 2 immobile, they'd both be counted out, and Hypnodisc would get back in, and Pussycat, the reigning champion, is out of the competition, so Hypnodisc gets back in. So now we've got Hypnodisc, Chaos 2, Tornado, Bigger Brother. So Bigger Brother would then fight Chaos 2, because it can't fight Hypnodisc again, and Tornado would fight Hypnodisc. So yeah, the Bigger Brother and Chaos 2 fight basically plays out the same way as in the real timeline, whereas Hypnodisc would unfortunately just struggle too much against Tornado, and get eliminated after just coming out of the loser's melee strong. Major upset. Tornado goes through to the grand final. So then in the other semi-final, we would have Wheelie Big Cheese facing Behemoth, Atomic facing Reactor 2, and Razer fighting Stinger. I mean, Wheelie Big Cheese would start strong against Behemoth, flipping it over a couple of times, but then Behemoth would start fighting back, and then this is when Wheelie Big Cheese just ends up breaking down, and Behemoth wins that one. Atomic would then beat Reactor 2 with not too many problems, and what I said earlier about Stinger and Razer, well, yeah, Razer would struggle against Stinger, because there's nothing to grab, and Stinger would beat Razer on another judge's decision. So the loser's melee is Razer, Wheelie Big Cheese, and Reactor 2. And even though Wheelie Big Cheese and Reactor 2 have super tough armour, it's no problem from Razer. Razer obviously stays out the way of Wheelie Big Cheese's flipper, but yeah, it would just push both robots around and just, clamping them with the claw. Wheelie Big Cheese, of course, ends up breaking down again, and then Razer goes on to beat Reactor on a judge's decision. So let's see, Razer, Stinger, Behemoth, Atomic. So Razer would then go on to face Atomic, while Stinger faces Behemoth. Now they did fight each other already, of course, twice, in the Challenge Belt and a Mayhem in Extreme 1. It goes the same way as the Challenge Belt fight, with Behemoth just pushing and flipping Behemoth around, Stinger around all over the place, getting clamped by the scoop and the axe and dumped in the pit. Behemoth goes through to the grand final, and despite Atomic's best run yet, Razer just defeats Atomic pretty easily and goes through to the grand final. So yeah, it's a pretty different grand final lineup. I mean, Bigger Brother and Razer are still there, of course, but we've got Tornado and Behemoth here instead of Hypnodisc and Firestorm. let's see, Razer, Tornado, Behemoth, Bigger Brother. So, yeah, Razer would fight Bigger Brother and Tornado would fight Behemoth. So, yeah, the Bigger Brother and Razer fight plays out the same way as their real timeline fight, with Razer winning on a judge's decision. Now, of course, Behemoth and Tornado did fight in the challenge belt, and Tornado won. But I feel like this would just play out the same way. Behemoth not being able to do much to Tornado, and Tornado wins on a judge's decision. So then in the playoff, Bigger Brother and Behemoth fight, and this would play out the same way as their Series 6 fight, basically, and just be one of the best fights ever. And, And, yeah, Bigger Brother beats Behemoth, and Bigger Brother takes third place. So Razer is in the grand final once again, but is up against Tornado. But so yeah, a rematch from this timeline's 4-4s, but again, Tornado is just simply no match, and yeah, Razer still wins the 5th Wars. So here's what the seeds for the 6 Wars would be like. We'd have 1 Razer, 2 Tornado, 3 Bigger Brother, 4 Behemoth, 5 Chaos 2, yeah, because it's easier, 6 Hypnodisc, 7 Stinger, 8 Atomic. Well, I know Atomic and Reactor 3 didn't qualify, but because they made the semi-finals in the actual timeline, they would be here. 9 Dominator 2, 10 Reactor 3, 11 Panic Attack, and 12 Firestorm 4, which would mean that S3, Wild Thing, and Spawn again would not be seeded, but it's difficult to figure out where they'd go. I mean, Spawn again would be in Reactor's heat, because originally Spawn again was seeded 10th at the time, so it makes sense to have him in that heat, but it's hard to say where Wild Thing, S3 and Smidsy would go. I mean, I could put Wild Thing in Dominator's 2's heat, since Wild Thing was the 9th seed in the real timeline, but even if I do that, I wouldn't know whether or not where to put Smidsy and S3, depending on whether they'd go in Atomic's heat or Smidsy's heat, so it's hard to say who'd go where. But then again, I guess Behemoth and Atomic would beat either of them, depending. And Dominator 2 would beat the Series 6 version of Wild Thing, so I guess that's the only way I can go from here. So Heat A, Razer's heat, nothing changes. Oh wait, but hold on. Actually, one of these robots would have to go in Bigger Brother's heat, because Behemoth is seeded here, and Bigger Brother can't be in the same heat. So thinking about it, Wild Thing, S3 or Smidsy, and the robots they fight would have to go there. But Bigger Brother would probably still win the heat anyway. And then Heat C, Chaos 2's Heat, nothing changes, Danton Kia goes through. Then Heat D, that would be the Heat with Stinger and 13 Black. 13 Black would win that one. Dominator 2 would win Heat E, like I said, and Terahertz would win Heat F. So Heat G, that would be Firestorm 4's Heat. Firestorm wins that one. Now, luckily this one's easy to figure out. Heat H. Reactor 3, I think, would replace Hot Pants and would face Ming 3, Spam and Hassels Hog instead. And I think Reactor 3 and Ming 3 would get through that battle, or Spawn again and Supernova win the other fight. And then, of course, Supernova beats Ming 3, and I feel like Reactor 3 would beat Spawn again, because I went over this before, but Reactor 3 actually does have a spinner on the back of it, so yeah, that would help Reactor 3 win. But I feel like Supernova would actually beat Reactor in the Heat final and go through. And Atomic would win Heat I, Hypnolist Heat J, Behemoth Heat K, and Tornado Heat L. So then, for the series semi-finals, the first one, we'd have Razer fight Dominator 2, Bigger Brother would fight Terahertz, and Stinger fight 13 Black fight Danton Kia. And Dominator 2 would beat Razer, Terahertz would beat Bigger Brother in the same way as the actual timeline, and Danton Kia would beat 13 Black. So yeah, we have a pretty interesting losers melee. Razer, Bigger Brother, and 13 Black, and Razer would just simply beat the both of them and get back in. And would then go on to face Danton Kia, while Terahertz would fight Danton. No. Hang on, I'm getting confused. Terahertz. Yeah, Danton Kia would fight Terahertz, and Terahertz would beat Danton. No. Again, I'm getting mixed up. Hang on. So we've got Razer, Terahertz, Danton Kia, why am I drawing a blank? Dominator 2, there we go. Yeah, Dominator 2 would fight Terahertz, there we go. Dominator 2 would beat Terahertz on a judge's decision. Razer would beat Danton Kia, there we go. So yeah, in the other semi-final, Tornado would still fight Hypnodisc and beat it. Firestorm and Behemoth would also fight each other. I'm not sure who'd win this one, but I feel like Firestorm more than likely would. Because because I'm not sure Behemoth would have as much power to flip Firestorm out as Atomic did, like I discussed earlier. And speak of Atomic, it would fight Spawn again and defeat Spawn again due to Spawn again's problems. So then it would be Behemoth fighting Spawn again in Hypnodisc instead of Bigger Brother, and would basically play out in a similar way to that proper Losers melee, with Hypnodisc ricocheting off Behemoth and the wall and breaking down, and Behemoth would get Spawn again in the pit and get straight back in. Now we've got Tornado, Behemoth, Atomic, Firestorm. Yeah, Tornado and Firestorm would fight each other like one round early, and Firestorm 4 would get knocked into the pit. And as for Behemoth and Atomic, yeah, they're very evenly matched, but chances are Atomic would more than likely win by getting Behemoth clean out the arena and would go through to the grand final. So, our grand finalists: Razer, Tornado, Atomic, and Dominator 2. So, yeah, Razer would fight Atomic and Tornado would fight Dominator 2. So Razer would beat Atomic again, and yeah, Tornado would beat Dominator 2. And then in the playoff, Atomic would beat Dominator 2 by flipping it all over the place and even out the arena. Then the grand final would play out the same way as before. Now with Tornado getting revenge on Razer and still winning the 6-4s. I'm not sure whether or not to fully cover the 7-4s for this one. The big difference would be Atomic would be seeded here, and would be seeded second. So it would be Tornado, Atomic, I don't know, I guess Atomic would be seeded instead of Ming Dynasty, for the sake of simplicity, which would mean that Atomic and Smitty would be kept separate from each other, so I guess I don't know, there'd have to be some switching around, but I still feel like Typhoon 2 would still win. But yeah, after all that, that is basically what would happen if Behemoth and Razer were seeded differently from their original seeds. Pussycat would end up winning the 4-4s, but Razer would still win Series 5, Tornado would still win Series 6, Typhoon 2 would still win Series 7, but obviously Panic Attack and Firestorm wouldn't be as successful. Plus Dominator 2 wouldn't be in the first All-Stars fight tournament, and yeah, that's basically how it would go. That's it. Thanks for watching.